So we've heard the stories of Kit Siang being portrayed as a devil, as a guy who wanted to remove Mara, Felda, Felkra, all the towering institutions which wanted to help underprivileged Malays. Someone who wanted to challenge and destroy the monarchy, someone who wanted to burn Malaysia to the ground if need be by racial riots. And obviously, I was a consumer of that narrative. When I was young, and I told this to him personally before, and I'm telling it to you again today, is that I believed it. I believed the demonic image of Kit Siang because I consumed TV3 and Utusan on a daily basis. I came from a lower middle income family in Johor, mom being a civil servant, a teacher, and my father, a Singaporean who worked as a laborer. And that was a narrative which we were fed in almost every single day. So being young, I believed in it. I grew up in a staunchly Barisan Nasional family. When I say staunch, I mean to a point that during elections, parents and family members will check one another to ensure that my siblings who could vote then will vote for Barisan Nasional, go out brandishing their fully sponsored BN merchandise, cool hats, t-shirts, and what have you. And it was in that family that I was taught about Saudara Kit. I don't blame my family, and I'm very privileged to be in a very loving family, but it was institutions which were built that way, subverted, to paint Saudara Kit as the most evil demon in Malaysia. Things changed in 2015 and 2016. Then I was merely an officer in the Prime Minister's office and a researcher under the Johor state government. And the 1MDB scandal came up. And obviously then, Saudara Kit was one of the first few persons who spoke supremely vocal about it. And then I started to realize we shared a lot more in common, especially when we started meeting up with one another. And then it wasn't very personal conversations. Then it was with Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin to Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. And I don't come from this political family. I mean, I was the first one in my family who actually got involved in politics. And then a lot of things which Kit Siang said were things which I believed in as well. And then I realized that it's not that demon which everyone wanted to portray. He worked a lot harder than many of the younger politicians. I think until today, I think he writes more press statements than many of the younger politicians, and every day I'll keep on asking, what new press statement will Kit Siang write? And I think that level of diligence, hard work, really exemplifies someone who's of that age, but still wanting to work as someone who's as young as myself. And as we campaign from state to state, that's when I realized that Kit Siang is not the Kit Siang which has been portrayed by the media for decades in Malaysia. That we share a lot more things in common, that while we may not be born into the same family, race or religion, and may be divided based on what institutions have fed us for decades, but I think common values, virtues, ideas are what tie us all up together, which then led to the historic win of GE14. I share this story because I believe that's the beautiful story of the Malaysia which we are in today. That while we may be born into different families and shared a very divided past, but I think our future should be a lot more connected with one another. And the beautiful story of Malaysia is that our strength is indeed in our diversity, and that we should celebrate diversity, not merely tolerate it. And that while I may have very different views of Kit Siang in my past, but I had the opportunity to change and now keep on moving forward. I think I have contributed to some extent to the demonization of yourself when I was young. In that system, through the multiple Biro Tata Negara camps which I've been forced to go at times, I would also volunteer to go. But that was my past. But my assurance is that in moving forward, in common values, common systems, I'd ensure that Malaysia will become that multiracial, moderate, prosperous, developed, dignified country which you had envisioned when you were young. And I believe that legacy and that thought will be continued by millions other young Malaysians, regardless of race and religion. And if anyone thinks that saying this is something controversial because immediately you will be seen, you are a puppet of Kit Siang. I mean, they forget and they undermine the intellect of young and old, different race and religion, urban to rural Malaysians who share the same belief, that they just want to see a Malaysia in which they could be proud to call home, regardless of the skin color which they are born into, the religion in which they associate to, regardless of the class which they are in. But in the end, it's that ultimate unified journey, which is to build a country which we are proud to call home, a country which will get its developed status, a dignified country free of corruption, with a good quality of education, a good pay, a good housing, a good public transportation, issues which tie us all up together. And that journey is ultimately the Malaysian journey, the Malaysian dream, which we should all embark on.